everybody. I want to thank y'all for coming out today. I'm going to go ahead and get started with my first speech. So, have you ever had a craving for an authentic square of lasagna but didn't feel like getting dressed up to go out to a fancy Italian restaurant? You don't have to go out to an expensive Italian restaurant to have a delicious homemade lasagna. I will show you how to make one yourself. I ran across this recipe a few years ago in a 2012 United Community Bank cookbook. I've made it over and over again, and it's always been a huge hit at my house. I've also conducted a little bit of research for different kinds of lasagna and what they really say about low carbohydrate diets. Today, I'm going to share with you a recipe of a homemade lasagna that is easy to make and that you and your family will enjoy. First, I'm going to explain what all we have over here as far as our supplies and ingredients. So we'll start with our large size frying pan and a spatula and about a medium to large size spoon. You're going to need a large pot to boil your noodles in, as well as some tongs, a medium to large size colander, a medium-sized mixing bowl and another large spoon, a pot holder, aluminum foil, a 13x9 glass baking dish, a small cutting board, you really won't need one much bigger than this, and a small knife, some measuring spoons, a measuring cup, and a can opener. And as far as your ingredients go, you'll of course need your lasagna noodles. But before we talk about any of the others, I would like to talk for a minute about low carb diets. As you know, pasta is a starch, and according to an article in the webmd.com website, which was last updated on February 20th, 2015, the American Dietetic Association as well as the American Heart Association do not recommend low carb diets. These diets can often restrict helpful foods that your body needs, and you would be robbing yourself of those essential vitamins and minerals. So moving on to the rest of our ingredients, you'll need some mozzarella cheese, your salt and pepper, fresh garlic, some canola or vegetable oil, some non-stick cooking spray, a 16-ounce can of Italian diced tomatoes, 2 small cans, these are 6-ounce cans, but you can use just a 12-ounce of just tomato paste, a 24-ounce container of cottage cheese. You'll need some Parmesan cheese, it's already grated, as well as your basil and parsley. So that's it for, and of course you'll obviously need an oven to put that in. So now that we've discussed our supplies and our ingredients, we will move on to getting our hamburger meat ready. You'll want to set your stove on about medium to high heat, and then once your pan gets hot, go ahead and add your hamburger. I usually don't add any oil to mine because I use ground chuck, and it will, as it's cooking, it'll make its own grease. Once your meat is browning, you can go ahead and use your small cutting board and your garlic and just peel that, mince that up. The recipe calls for about 1 clove of garlic, but you can use a little bit more. You wouldn't want to use much more though, or it will take away from the other flavors in your dish. But definitely fresh garlic is the way to go. It's a lot better than, powder or salt. So just stir that up occasionally, and so that you don't burn it. And while we're waiting on the meat, go ahead and get your pot to boil your noodles in, and put a little bit of canola or vegetable oil in that. That way your noodles won't stick together. Add a little bit of salt. That just really helps, the pasta makes it a little tastier. And then while you wait on your noodles, return to your hamburger meat, and your meat should be brown, so go ahead and remove that from the stove. Drain the grease, and then I usually blot it with a paper towel just to get any excess grease that didn't drain. So return to heat, but you're going to turn it down to a simmer. And then you'll use your Italian diced tomatoes and your 2 cans of paste. You'll add that in your pan, as well as your garlic and your parsley and your basil. You'll just use a pinch of the basil and the parsley. Let that simmer for about 15 minutes, and then if your water is boiling, you can go ahead and add about half of the box of lasagna noodles. You're only going to need about 9 noodles, but I usually put a few extra in just in the event that 1 or 2 might break. So cook your pasta by the directions on the box. It usually takes about 8 to 10 minutes. Turn your heat down between medium to high heat. And then while you wait for your meat sauce to thicken, you'll move on to your cottage cheese mixture. Let's see, you'll need your cottage cheese, 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, a cup of Parmesan cheese, and 1 egg, well beaten. You'll just mix all that up and set that aside. And then grease your 13 by 9 pan, just the bottom of it will be fine. And then return to your noodles. If they are done, go ahead and remove and drain those into your colander, and remove your meat sauce and turn off the stove. Now that we have all of our noodles and sauce cooked and our cottage cheese is ready to go, this next phase should move fairly quickly. We are now ready to start the layering process. So you're going to start with your meat first. You'll just spread a little bit, enough to go across the bottom of your pan, and then that'll create your first layer. Then you'll put your lasagna noodles. You'll be like 3 wide in your pan, and they say usually to kind of overlap them just a little bit. So once you've got your noodles in there, you'll spread your cottage cheese mixture onto the noodles for your 3rd layer, and then you'll just start over with your meat sauce. Sprinkle some mozzarella cheese on there, and then repeat. So now we're ready to bake it. You're going to cover it with your aluminum foil, and you're going to bake it for a total of 30 minutes, but the first 15 minutes, keep the foil on there, and then after that you can take it off. That just kind of helps to keep your noodles from drying out. So you let that stand. Once it's baked for 30 minutes, let that stand for about 10 minutes so it'll cut out into a square, and you'll just serve that up with a garden tossed salad and some garlic knots. So that's pretty much it. There are some other ways to fix lasagna. As for myself, I prefer the classic recipe, but we will talk briefly about some other types. According to the website tasteofhome.com, last assessed earlier this year, there's a compilation of recipes to choose from. For veggie lovers, or if you're vegan, you may prefer rosemary butternut squash, eggplant, black bean, or artichoke spinach. If you are a cheese lover, you may prefer using a ricotta cheese for your filling instead of the cottage cheese. Or you may use a shredded cheese such as cheddar, Colby, or like a Mexican blend. So in conclusion, you have an authentic Italian meal made in your kitchen, served on your dinner table. I have now explained the ingredients and supplies needed, the step-by-step process of mixing, layering, and baking this pasta dish, and lastly, I have reviewed a few alternate choices you can try. Now that I have everyone's mouth watering, I have prepared a classic lasagna for you to taste for yourself. Let's eat. And let me pan the room again.